Okay, it is 7 p.m. on Monday, May 10th. I will call this regular meeting of the Meridian Township Planning Commission to order. Looks like we snuck in with a quorum here. I got a few more folks joining us as well, so we will go ahead and get started. First up on our agenda is public remarks. For those wishing to join the Planning Commission during public remarks, they can do so by raising your hand if you are in the Zoom meeting, or they can give us a call at 517-349-1232. There will be two opportunities for public remarks right now and at the conclusion of the meeting. So if you are here wishing to speak to an agenda item in front of the Planning Commission this evening, now would be the time. Remember that remarks are limited to 3 minutes, and please provide your name and address at the beginning of your remarks. And with that, we will go ahead and open the floor.
And as the chair stated, you can of course use the raise hand inside the meeting if you choose to participate that way. If you're participating from home, watching home TV, the telephone number is 517-349-1232. Again, one more time, that telephone number, 517-349-1232. I see no hands, obviously, Chair Hendrickson, and I'm hearing no telephones ring.
Okay, we'll give everyone just another moment. Okay, we'll go ahead and close public remarks. We'll move on to the next item of our agenda.
You had to come up at the last moment, sir.
Okay, I see Mr. McLaughlin. John, you're on with the Planning Commission. If you could please unmute yourself, go ahead. John, if you're speaking, I believe you unmuted and then remuted.
Okay, you hearing me now?
We are, yes.
Okay. Well, then I guess I'll pass and listen on.
John, if you're wishing to speak to the Planning Commission this evening, you can go ahead and give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is John McLaughlin. Address is 4442 Congdon Drive, Williamston.
Okay, and your 3 minutes starts now.
Okay, I just was checking to make sure I was in the meeting. We'll be talking, or the New China rezoning that's on your schedule for, I think, item C, but that isn't up yet. So I'll step aside.
Okay, so you are here as a representative of the applicant for agenda item 6C is what you're telling me.
Yes.
Be aware that this is the time for public remarks. The Planning Commission may not call upon you. So if you'd like to say something, now would be a good time.
I don't really have anything to add beyond the application and the condition that we were asked to amend to the application, which you have on file there. So
okay.
I'll just listen in.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak at public remarks? All right, with that, we'll close public remarks and move on to agenda item 3, which is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion for the agenda this evening? Moved by Commissioner Primo. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion or changes or amendments to the agenda? Commissioner McConnell.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I misunderstood the first 3 items under other business. Seem to me like things that we looked at before and might be considered unfinished. Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, I had that same thought. They probably should be up in agenda item 7 as opposed to 8.
So I would
functionally, I don't think there's any difference, no. But yeah, that for the sake of consistency meeting to meeting, we can certainly move them to agenda item 7 if its motion maker is willing to accept that as a friendly amendment. All right. So those 3 items, A, B, and C, that are currently under 8 are now going to be under 7. Any other changes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Pardon me, the printer's going up. Seeing none, the agenda passes. We'll move on to agenda item 4A, approval of minutes. We have one set of meeting minutes from our April 26, 2021 meeting. If I could have a motion for the minutes, please. Moved by Commissioner Primo. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Cordell. Any discussion on the meeting minutes this evening? Commissioner Cordell.
I do. There was mention, and I'm trying to find the exact reference. There was reference regarding the multi-level senior care project on Grand River. It actually doesn't. It doesn't go. It's not in agreement with the future land use map. The proposed rezoning.
This was agenda item 6B, I believe, last time.
Mm-hmm.
That would be page 3 of the minutes. I'm looking for future land use map references. Looks like it's in the straw poll section at the bottom of the page.
Yep, that's where it was. Thank you.
So how would you like it amended, Commissioner?
Just to say it is not in agreement, just to take that one term and turn it into a negative.
Okay. Any objections to that amendment?
Was that to say it's not an agreement or it's not a good use?
It's not, excuse me, it's not in agreement with the future land use map because the future land use map would have it to be commercial, it's existing zoning. But the request is to turn it into residential zoning. It's not to say it's not a good use. Frankly, I think it is a good use.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
I think that a couple of different comments kind of got crunched into one. I would be uncomfortable not saying that this is a good use because I think that, we have to go back to what people said, but I think several people said that they were supportive of the proposed use. But I think Commissioner Cordell's point is that based on the future land use map, it's not in alignment. And so I'm uncomfortable changing this without going back to hear what people said, because I think that we could be undoing somebody's sentiment if we edit it inappropriately in the way that it was just suggested.
Yeah,
I think they were just two different comments, actually, two independent, because
Agreed.
the staff report stated it was not in conformance with the future land use map. They're two separate.
perhaps to encapsulate, I wasn't here for the meeting, of course, but perhaps to encapsulate both points of view, we could make the amendment read that could support the rezoning request for this project, and this is a good use for the site despite not being in conformance with the future land use map.
I think that would be a good way to state it.
I think that would probably cover both points of view. Commissioner Primo.
I just want to observe that having a baby is no excuse for missing a meeting, and congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
He looks well rested too.
Lots of caffeine. All right. So is there any other discussion or amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the minutes pass. All right, we'll move on then to agenda item 5, communications. We have none. Agenda item 6, public hearings. We have none. And then we'll move on then to agenda item 7A, which was on our printed packet as 8A. It's special use permit number 21031 EROP LLC to construct a drive-through car wash at 2703 Grand River Avenue. We'll turn things over to Director Kieselbach.
Good evening, everyone. This request is a special use permit, as was mentioned, for the car wash. The consensus of the planning commission at your last meeting was to move ahead with this and have the special use permit on for action, and it's before you tonight for an approval. We did have the opportunity, Keith Chapman and myself, to meet with the applicant and go over the plan. They are going to look at improved building material for the site. You do have an elevation of what they had proposed, but I think through site plan review, we're going to be able to amend that a little bit more and add more brick and stone to the facade of the building. Other than that, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion on this topic? Or a motion to be made? Commissioner McConnell.
Yeah, thanks. I saw in the minutes reflected that we had discussed the issue of replacing the two driveways with proper sidewalk, and I can see some of that in the original application. I guess my question for staff is in the replacement that's considered for that sidewalk, meeting, let me see if I can get that language here. Moving the pathway back from the curb to allow for easier snow clearing. And in the original site plan, there was a note that said proposed concrete sidewalk contractor to provide smooth transition between existing and proposed pavements. And my question for staff is the current pathway there, does it meet the criteria for the township's pathway inclusion in the township's pathway plan? Is it of the right width and all?
It does currently meet the requirements. One thing through site plan review, we'll ask our township engineer, because they do participate in these site plan review meetings, if there is any suggestion, if it possibly can be moved any further away from the back of the curb at that time.
That's great, thank you. Is that something that would normally happen as a course of action, or does it warrant a condition on the permit, or what's your recommendation?
I think if you would like to leave it for the staff to handle through site plan review, we can do that.
Great, thank you.
Any other discussion? I did have one thing that I wanted to ask, since I wasn't able to be there last meeting, which was, this area is one that we had targeted as our pilot area for the form-based code initiative. And I wonder if there has been any consideration given, knowing that that's the direction that we're headed here, to, moving the building up front. So sort of putting it on that northern side of the property, or if that's something that either the applicant has considered or that the staff has brought up to them as, and something that we would be interested in seeing, or if that could still be handled during site plan review.
We can certainly look at that through site plan review. One of the issues is that vehicles enter on the south end and then head north towards Grand River, and they've got to have enough turning movement when you come out of the car wash to be able to make that turn for the driveway. That's one of the reasons why it was placed, the building itself was placed in the location it is. We certainly can work with the applicant to see if we can move it a little bit one way or the other.
I wondered if I don't have the dimensions in front of me, but if the building could be running along the northern side, entrance from the east, and exit onto the west, or vice versa.
Yeah. I don't know if the applicant's present, if they looked at that or not.
I see someone with their hand raised in the meeting here. And then Commissioner Richards, I do see you also. Reed, are you with the applicant for this project?
Yes, I'm the engineer for this project representing Hypershine. So I understand what you're going for here. Unfortunately, with the turn movements on site, placing it, whether it would be on the southern side of the property or the northern side, we would run into an issue with stacking, putting it along the rear edge of the property, and then along the north, kind of how the site operates is after you leave, you need to be able to enter the vacuum area. It wouldn't really allow for vehicles to enter the vacuum area and then successfully leave without impacting another part of our turn movements on the site. It's a very tight site. We still do need to get a variance for front yard setback, due to how oddly shaped the site is and kind of where the current building location entrances are. So we're kind of married to this location with the building.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, I just wanted to say my recollection is we covered this, and that's what the discussion was at the last meeting, that because this is a site with it's a limited size site, it really, this is the only configuration, at least my recollection, that would work on the site. Because if you look at, trying to, for instance, move the cars so that they're coming in on the other, along Grand River, that's going to put all the vehicles up close to the road as opposed to the building. So I think this, at least in my view, is the best. It's really the only way this is going to work on the site.
Thank you. Any other discussion here? Commissioner McConnell. You muted, Bill.
There was a lot of interest last time in the hoses, and I see the applicant has provided an illustration in tonight's packet of how those hoses would work. And I was just going to add, for the chair's benefit, since he wasn't here for the last discussion, that that rendering, well, I'm sure it is accurate, is not what the building would look like on that north side, because there would be the additional service bay. So that's kind of, if you flip that backwards, it would be the entrance on the south side leading up towards, have I got that right, Reed?
Right. You are correct. This is kind of looking at the typical southern side of the entrance of it, and not the exit. That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I actually do have an updated rendering if you would like me to share it, that shows kind of the additional brick and stone. It's more of the deluxe package. And I know some of you guys did Google the client here and looked at some of the renderings, and I did send that to Mark and Keith, but it may have been a little late to get into the packet. But I do have that if that's something you guys would like to see. But I know we'll work with the township and Mark and them on making sure the facade meets all the requirements that you guys are looking for.
Wonderful. Commissioner Richards.
I was just ready to, I'll make a motion when you're ready for it.
Ready when you are.
Okay, I move to adopt the resolution approving special use permit 21031 to construct a drive-through car wash at 2703 Grand River Avenue. So moved.
Seconded by Commissioner Bloomer. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Commissioner McConnell.
Yes.
Commissioner Primo.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell.
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes.
Commissioner Trezise.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Cooksey. We appreciate your being here this evening.
I really appreciate it, everyone, and have a great rest of your Monday.
And we'll see you at the ZBA.
Absolutely. See you then.
All right, next up on the agenda is item 7B, which is rezoning number 21040 Okemos IL Investors LLC to rezone 2 parcels totaling approximately 9.07 acres located at 1510 and 1560 Grand River Avenue from C2 commercial to RA single family medium density. And we'll turn things over to Director Kieselbach.
Thank you. Again, this property, as was mentioned, is approximately 9 acres at the northwest corner of Powell Road in Grand River. Current zoning was C2. Again, as we talked before, this property originally was going to be developed for a car dealership. That no longer is the case. And the applicant has requested a rezoning from C2 to single family RA. Their intent, again, as they expressed in their application, if this is approved, they would do a senior living community. If this does get rezoned, that does require a special use permit. So the Planning Commission would see this project again based on the RA zoning. And the consensus at the Planning Commission last meeting was to recommend approval of that. And you have a resolution in your packet to make that recommendation.
Thank you. Any discussion on this topic? Don't see any hands up. We'll be happy to entertain a motion. Oh, Commissioner Cordell.
Yeah, thank you. I just think for the record, we should reiterate, and actually it is in the resolution, that in spite of it not conforming to the future land use plan, there is surrounding to the northeast and to the south residential zoning. So given the land use patterns there, I think it's appropriate to have it rezoned.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Primo.
I move the adoption of the proposal before us.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Trezise. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go into a roll call vote. Commissioner McConnell.
Yes.
Commissioner Primo.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell.
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes.
Commissioner Trezise.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 7C, which is rezoning number 21030, New China of Michigan, to rezone 4.42 acres RC, multiple family, maximum 14 dwelling units per acre, to RCC, multiple family, maximum 34 dwelling units per acre at 5114 Joe Don Drive. Director Kieselbach. Oh, I'm sorry, Assistant Planner Chapman is actually our lead staffer for this one.
Are you going to handle this, Mark?
I can, if it's either
Okay,
one.
I don't have it in front of me, so.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Again, the Planning Commission talked about this rezoning back in April, and there was some discussion, as the applicant had talked about. They would like to use the northern half at the time, either for a single family home or possibly a duplex, and how best to get to that point, as the rezoning was requested at RCC, which is 34 units per acre. They've come back and offered a condition, and that's in your packet. The condition that they've offered said, upon approval of the rezoning, the applicant will come back in the future and rezone the north half of the parcel to a residential zoning category. In your staff memo, the one thing that we suggested, if you choose to recommend approval, and the township can do this by the ordinance, put a time frame on this rezoning, so that if you do recommend approval, that the applicant would come back for the request on that northern half, whether it's 12 months, 24 months, something that the Planning Commission feels reasonable, so that it isn't just out there for any longer or specific time. So if something does move ahead in the future on this property. And we don't have it on for action tonight. We wanted to see the planning commission's opinion on this, and then we can bring it back at your next meeting with a resolution.
Thank you. Commissioner Primo.
Is there any reason to wait any longer than when you pass one that they immediately would move to rezone?
There's no time. Typically, after the board approves a rezoning, there is a 7-day period after final adoption and publication. Because it's a zoning amendment, people have the right to seek a referendum if they disagree with the action of the township board. But within that time, right after the publication in 7 days, they could come back and initiate the rezoning of the northern part.
I would say with that in mind, my sense would be I wouldn't extend that any more than 30 days. I'd want it done within a month.
Thank you. Commissioner Cordell.
Yes, thank you. I'm concerned about the ambiguity of the condition. As it stands, it just says, well, back in the future, we'll come back in the future and we'll rezone for a rezoning of the north half of the parcel to a residential zoning category. I mean, that's where it is now, is it not? It's not saying it would be downzoned.
The idea right now, if you rezone it, the entire parcel would be zoned RCC, multiple family, 34 units per acre. Then they would come back and seek a rezoning of only the northern portion to what we're looking at as another residential category and not RCC, as they talked about either a single family or for a single resident or possibly a duplex.
Is that specific enough? It seems pretty vague in my understanding.
This is the wording we have from the applicant.
Yeah, I couldn't support it I would not support this as it's written. I don't think the neighboring properties to the north would benefit, nor would the township in general.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a similar concern to Commissioner Cordell. Obviously, we can't require a condition. We can't suggest new language. I did note that both the current zoning and the future zoning under this proposal would both be considered residential zoning categories. And so really the condition that's been offered doesn't provide any protection to the township by my eye. Also, with regard to the timing, Director Kieselbach, wouldn't they have to go through a split, a land division or some kind of split of the property in order to rezone the northern half? And that would take some amount of time, right?
Oh, that was one of the reasons why I started the rezoning, is because the staff couldn't divide the property because of the zoning requirements. So until the property is zoned to, say, a single family category, we can't approve it because it won't meet the minimum standards.
Right. So I guess just from an order of operations perspective, you could help me out here. It would be zone it up to what they're proposing or what they're requesting, then split it and zone the northern half back down to a single family residential.
They would have to seek the rezoning first so that the property could be split, concurrent with the zoning on it. A good example, that northern portion, the best zoning category that we have that would fit the dimensions. So the width of that lot along Jodan and the area, the square footage of the parcel would meet RB standards.
RB,
right? That's 65 feet in width and 8,000 square feet in area.
Right.
And it wouldn't meet it's about 9,000 square feet, the lot, the northern portion. So it wouldn't meet RA, which is a minimum 10,000 square feet. A duplex, the minimum square footage is 11,000 square feet.
Okay, so I guess the reason why I'm asking is because I guess perhaps I just haven't seen enough of these to know you can rezone a portion of the property and then split it.
Right. We've had property and before that have split zoning on them. Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, I think that's answering my question. I saw Commissioner Bloomer, then Commissioner Richards.
I'll be honest with you, I am uncomfortable with what an attorney would refer to as a future condition. My drive-by of that property also suggested to me that if it does get split off, the best thing they could probably do with it is pave it over and make it a neighborhood basketball court. Because I doubt that anybody's going to want to use that property for anything remotely like residential. I just think they'll be destroying the inherent value of that property and injuring the neighborhood itself. And like I said, I'm uncomfortable with the whole idea of a future condition in the zoning of that property. So my inclination would be to vote against this proposal.
Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, I guess my challenge is just trying to understand this with, it's been some time since we've, because I don't believe did we talk about this at the last meeting? I don't believe so, right? This is a couple meetings ago. And so I'm having a hard time. I know that we had a number of neighbors who were opposed to it. My recollection on that. So I mean, there's too many unknowns here for me to support this at this time. So that's where I stand.
Thank you. Yeah, and to Commissioner Bloomer's point, it would have to be, I could even get behind a future condition so long as it was really specific. But unfortunately, what was provided, it was really not specific. And so I would really struggle with supporting this for that reason alone. Even though I understand this is a very challenging parcel to try to do what I understand their intention to be. Any other discussion? Commissioner Cordell.
Thank you. What earlier Director Kieselbach said the northern parcel could fall into an RB designation. What could be built on that?
RB is single family.
Okay, thank you.
So just
Any other questions? So I think it might behoove us to reaffirm our straw poll so that we can bring this back for action based on the current proposal with the condition. That way staff can, sort of know where our heads are at collectively, and we can have this on for action at the next meeting. Does that sound good for everyone? See some nodding heads. All right, so we'll go ahead and go through. Commissioner McConnell.
Well, I'm really torn on this one. We heard information about what might be proposed to be done there, but we can't make a decision based on what might be proposed in terms of zoning. It does seem like the proposed condition is more vague than we'd like to have it. So something more concise would be easier to support.
Okay, Commissioner Primo.
No.
Commissioner Cordell.
Not as presented, no.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
I'm also a little bit torn. I feel as if there's a little bit of a catch-22 that they can't do what I remember that there was some opposition from neighbors, but I think the opposition was to a commercial building as opposed to splitting the parcel and possibly putting another residential there. but I just don't see how they can get to that with, there needs to be more clarity in order for me to be comfortable sort of giving blanket okay to rezone. And if you know, so I'm really torn, but I don't see how I could support it as it is now, because I just don't feel like, I feel like that's opening up a window that I don't believe was in keeping with the property and or with the public comment that we heard about the rezoning. So long way to say probably wouldn't support unless it could be represented in a way that would make me more comfortable with what's being proposed.
Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, I think I've already said that I can't support it, at least based on what I know now. I would be interested in, in the staff's opinion going forward as to what is being proposed. Is it workable? Because it seemed like the conversation at the time was kind of a catch-22. No matter what happened, it wasn't really going to satisfy or provide an outcome or a path to an outcome that the applicant was looking for. So, if the staff can maybe clarify that, and as part of the background information, I could potentially be persuaded to vote for it if there's actually a path that would lead to a single family use of that property. But I guess long-winded, not as it presently stands, can I support it?
Thank you. Commissioner Bloomer.
As currently structured, I would oppose it.
Okay. Commissioner Trezise.
As currently structured, I would oppose it. I would like to support the property owner for use of that half of their property, but I couldn't agree to zoning, increasing the density on this property without a more concise and clear avenue toward subdividing and allowing a single family dwelling. And I would think a timeline of at least 6 months would be in order to effectuate that, recognizing you have to do the rezoning and then the split. But I would oppose it as presented.
Yeah, and similarly to what my colleagues have said, I would oppose it with the current proposal in front of us, which is for the rezoning with the condition that has been offered. I think there's room to be persuaded, certainly, and I think to Commissioner Shrewsbury's point, the neighbors were in opposition to the upzoning without the full picture of what the applicant stated at the public hearing that they wish to do with that property. And if we can find a way to get them to have this be a single family use, I think that would be in keeping with what the neighbors are interested in seeing also, and be in conformance with the future land use map also. So I think, as presented, I can't support it. If there were changes, perhaps I could, but at the moment, I feel like we've got a pretty good sense that as written with no changes, the Planning Commission would likely oppose the rezoning as presented. Clear as mud, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And if
Keep
the
this up and
applicant,
he's
if the
gonna
applicant,
leave. You keep this up and he's going to leave. You know that.
if the applicant, I think, Mark would agree that if the applicant wants to reach out to this planning staff to help to understand, sort of the intricacies of, this sort of thing, so as to provide a clearer picture, I'm sure they'd be happy to take your call.
Yeah, we can help him.
Now he's really going to leave. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 8A, which is commission review. This is number 21033, Park Commission, Section 61 review for the acquisition of 1.85 acre parcel at 5280 Okemos Road. And I believe this one is Director Kieselbach again.
Yeah, I think Keith is actually going to do this one.
Guess
Yeah, I
wrong
have a PowerPoint here. Let me pull it up for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, commission review 21033. This is a section 61 review of the location, character, and extent for a 1.85 acre parcel located at 5280 Okemos Road for the acquisition of the Township Park System to construct an entrance to the Nancy Moore Park and trailhead for pedestrian bicycle pathway system. So this is the location. It's located on the east side of Okemos Road, just south of the railroad tracks and just west of Nancy Moore Park and the Meridian Service Center. A little bit of a description. The Park Commission received a grant from the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund to acquire this property for the Township Park System. It is 1.85 acres in size, and it has 228 feet of frontage on Okemos Road. Currently, there is a 1,687 square foot, 2-story single-family home, which was constructed in 1900, located on the property. There's also a 576 square foot detached garage just east of the single-family home. March 2nd, 2021, the Township Board referred this case to the Planning Commission to review the location, character, and extent of the property. So the future land use map designates this property as R2 residential, 0.5 to 3.5 dwelling units per acre. Just to the north is, across the railroad tracks, is single family that has the same future land use designation, and to the east is the Meridian Service Center and Park, Nancy Moore Park, and which is institutional. And then across Okemos Road there to the west are a couple of preserves that are designated as parks on the future land use map. So Section 61 of the Michigan Planning and Enabling Act requires Planning Commission review and approval of a location, character, and extent for the construction or purchase of new public streets, parks, open space buildings, and other facilities. The location refers to the site's placement in the township and its surroundings. As proposed, this property for acquisition is located west of and adjacent to Nancy Moore Park and the Meridian Service Center. Character includes the site's distinguishing features, and extent includes the dimensions of which the site is. And this site is approximately 1.85 acres in size with 228 feet of frontage on Okemos Road. Planning Commission options. The Planning Commission can approve or deny the commission review, and a resolution to approve is attached in your packet.
Thank you very much. And just to be clear, this is not the sort of thing we need a public hearing for or anything. We can decide this without that.
Correct.
Okay.
And just, if I can introduce Jane Greenway from the Parks Department is here to answer any questions for you.
Welcome, Jane. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Anything you'd like to add to Mr.
I'll just say
Chapman's presentation?
this is a grant that we applied for twice and found out we got it last year. So we're pretty excited about adding some parkland onto an area that has a very contiguous green space with the parks and the land preserves.
Thank you. So we'll open it up for discussion. I see Commissioner Bloomer.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Does the house that exists on the property now have any historic or preservation value?
It does not.
The plan is to destroy it then after acquisition?
Yes, and we've been in touch with the owners. Actually, the former chief of fire lived there many years ago, and his son takes care of the house now, but they understand that as part of the grant, if it's not being utilized for a park purpose, we have to take the house down.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner McConnell.
Yeah, this is more informational. Do I understand the first clause, the MCL 125-3861, to kind of function in the same way that a rezoning would if it were required, that you can't turn something into a park without having a review of it, rather than going through a formal rezone? I'm just trying to figure out because the future land use map says residential, but we're saying we would like this to be institutional, and I fully support that. I'm just trying to understand the mechanics of that.
The reason for this section 61 review, and if you remember years ago, it used to be called section 9 review. This is because the township has adopted a master plan, and this acquisition is to ensure that it is the location, character, and extent is consistent with the township's master plan.
And so by virtue of being adjacent to the institutional property, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Commissioner Cordell.
I had been out there today, and yeah, like Commissioner Bloomer, I was wondering about its significance. Is there any possibility that the house could be sold and moved? I don't know the condition of it. It looks fairly intact street side in terms of what it probably looked many years ago. I'm just wondering if the township would entertain that idea.
We did not. The house is described as poor condition in the appraisal, and that some of that is in relation to the structure and some things like that. So I think it's an interesting house because it's an old house, and it lends context to when Okemos Road looked quite different than it does now. But I don't think, I think that the sellers had talked about selling it just as a single family home, and ultimately preferred that the township have it, and thought that it really should be best as part of the parks. And thankfully they are patient, because this Michigan Natural Resources Trust and acquisition process is extremely lengthy. And a lot of times sellers, we've had times where we've gotten a grant and then the seller has sold it to someone else in that long time period. But the sellers would have had that choice, I guess, is the answer.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just was wondering if that was an option for the house. I was also looking down that road thinking, that it kind of exemplified farmhouses along Okemos Road, kind of a lost chapter. But anyway, thank you for addressing that.
Commissioner Richards. Yep, you're muted, Jerry.
Question for Jane, is the master plan of the park system, does that include that property now, or is that going to have to be kind of modified to put this property to use?
I think it's very generally included in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan in terms of always enhancing parks or adding green space. So it's talked about in very vague terms, but that parcel was never identified specifically as part of a plan for Central Park. Although it's not necessarily on paper specifically, it's always been in our mind, because the existing entrance to Nancy Moore is very confusing. And you have an entrance where you have all of these work vehicles coming and going out onto in the same driveway where a lot of park visitors are coming. And because Nancy Moore Park is set so far back and it's just kind of a funny snaky road to get in there, a lot of people can't find it. And so we haven't kind of fully developed our plans for this, but part of the benefit of acquiring this property is to get an improved entrance where we're going to try to separate, like maybe you turn in and you go to the left kind of to get to the park, and try to separate a little bit from the park versus the service center with all those vehicles.
Okay. I guess second question, the outbuilding on the property, is that going to stay, or is that going to be removed also?
that will be removed as well. It's maybe like a 1960s or 70s pole barn. And so everything will be removed. But the one thing that we do want to keep is there's an azalea, a huge azalea shrub that grows up the side of the chimney. And if you're going south on Okemos Road, probably sometime in the next few weeks, you'll see it. And it's just incredibly beautiful, huge and purple. And so we are going to try to keep that shrub if we can. And there's a lot of nice trees on the property. It will really make a wonderful resting point along this MSU to Lake Lansing Regional Pathway. And hopefully in the future, we can put a small restroom out there, maybe a trailhead and a little bit of parking. There's a lot of users of the interurban pathway, and there will be of this regional trail system, and there's not a restroom. So that's going to be quite a benefit.
Thank you.
Commissioner Primo,
I move the resolution.
do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Bloomer. Any final discussion on this? I did have one thing I wanted to ask of Jane. And obviously, from what your comments before, the plan is not yet finalized, but is the hope that for vehicular traffic going to Nancy Moore, that you'll have a separate entryway rather than Gaylord Smith Court, and sort of, close off that current driveway to the parking lot of the park, or what, what's the general sense of it?
I think that that anything's on the table right now. After you have hundreds of parents leaving a game, it's pretty busy on Okemos Road, and it's not very good sight distance when you're turning left. And if you're in the driveway of this property 5280, you actually have much better sight distance. Maybe the kink in the plan is the railroad tracks and how close we can put a driveway to the railroad tracks, and the other entryways, the driveways down the road. So I think that we'll have to talk to the road commission about that, and we'll be doing the plan internally with Niall Nunn and Giannis Ashradi to come up with we think a safer and more separate entrance. But probably we will keep Gaylord C. Smith Court for both, I think, is what's going to happen. It's, there's all these fire trucks and fuel refilling trucks. And so that Gaylord C. Smith Court has to be a pretty wide entrance and a very maneuverable driveway.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then we will go ahead and take a vote. And we'll start with Commissioner McConnell.
Yes.
Commissioner Primo.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell.
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes.
Commissioner Trezise.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. So your commission review has been approved. Thank you for joining us, Jane. All right, last up on our agenda for action items is the Pathway Master Plan. This is 8B. And we've got a motion in front of us from the discussion last time about from Deputy Manager Perry. Keith or Mark, anything else you wanted to add at this time?
No, it's just a resolution to based on Director Perry's recommendation.
Okay. Any discussion on this topic? All right, then we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Trezise. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner McConnell. All right, if I didn't hear any discussion before, we'll give everyone one last chance. All right, Commissioner McConnell.
Wholeheartedly.
Commissioner Primo.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell.
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes.
Commissioner Trezise.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So the changes are supported. All righty. That takes us to agenda item 9A, Township Board Update. Director Kieselbach, what have you got for us?
Yeah. The board's last meeting was May 6th. They did vote to grant final adoption for the zoning amendment. This is the one where motor vehicle sales or new or used automobile dealerships would require a special use permit subject to the township board granting the final approval. So again, that will be published and that will take effect 7 days after it's published. They also granted the final plat approval for Silverstone Estates. That's the 25 lot, single family subdivision north of Grand River on the east side of Powell Road. So in that process, now that the township has granted it, they go and seek approvals from the other reviewing agencies such as the Road Commission, the Drain Commission. And once they have that, then they can submit it to the state and the state will review it. And once the state approves it, the owner now can start selling lots in that subdivision.
All right.
So, and then one last one was the discussion item is the special use permit for Newton Place. The board, or excuse me, the commission remembers that was part of the mixed use planning development. This is the property southeast corner of Saginaw and Newton. The mixed use development was approved with the special use permit, and that was for the overall size of the buildings. The zoning ordinance says any single building or group of buildings more than 25,000 square feet need a special use permit. The board approved that special use permit. They're valid for 2 years or 24 months, in which time construction is supposed to have started. If construction hasn't started, they're allowed to ask for a one-time, 1 year extension. And the proprietor for Newton Place did ask for that. And the board is going to go ahead at their next meeting and approve that extension for that special use permit.
Okay.
And then I should mention, just for if anybody's following it, the Jolly Road, Kansas rezoning will be on this meeting May 18th for discussion at the board level.
Okay. Any other questions for Director Kieselbach? Just from a follow-up perspective, do you know, did Peter send along before he left the, we initiated an amendment, didn't we, for the MEPUD? Do we know when that'll be on?
Yeah, that public hearing is going to be at your next meeting.
Okay. So us first, then them. Got it.
Right.
And then we were also getting ready to send along the draft form-based code to the board. I know that he was talking to Mr. Walsh about that. Do we know if there's been any movement there?
Right. One of the things that the commissioners weren't aware, the new director, Tim Schmidt, who's going to take my place, is actually starting on May 17th, and we wanted to get him up to speed on form-based code before it went any further. So it will be moving along.
Got it. And then with summer coming, we may not have as much time as we'd like, but we should consider, once Mr. Schmidt joins us, working on a schedule, or with he or whoever he appoints as planning director, to move forward on the other subcommittee items that we've been working on. So we'll go ahead and give ourselves another couple of weeks here, but then let's plan on jumping back into it once that all gets moving forward.
Yeah.
And then any other liaison reports from liaison meetings? Commissioner Bloomer.
The Downtown Development Authority met on May 3, a week ago. I think the things that would be of interest to this board are, first of all, there was information presented that construction costs, and this is a matter of general national news, but it also hits home. Construction costs are skyrocketing, and it's anticipated that that may affect timing, if nothing else, of some of the construction plans. There will be a Village of Okemos celebration. I there was some confusion about the date, but if I got it correctly, I believe it's October 9 from noon till 4 o'clock, and that'll include a high school art walk. So, that
Were
was
there
it.
any projects specifically that they mentioned were going to be impacted by the cost increases, or was it just sort of a general, this is going to affect everyone?
Perhaps Amber has more information about this, but I believe that it was just a general fear that it's going to affect everything.
Good evening, commissioners. We did get a report from True North developer and director on the in the DDA, Will Randall, about the cost of most construction. So lumber is still pretty high, still very scarce. That what is available. MPV, same thing. The good news is that the project is still on. It's on task for schedule that they presented. So they still have a fall deadline of beginning footing preparation for vertical construction, which is still on point. And they've just recently submitted their first rounds of reimbursements, but I'll let the rest of the commissioners get to that. So it was a director specifically speaking from the True North development, but it was in relation to just our knowledge and being aware that construction projects going on right now are just going to have to absorb that extra cost, really. Even with local or smaller projects, there's an expansion that's going on that you guys will be a part of, I'm sure, for additional variances. But that project quoted at maybe 6 figures is definitely up to now $1 million just to continue doing the same project within that timeline. So it's just something to be aware of. We're still chugging along. I'm positive about it.
Okay. I did note in the course of my day job that the looked like the road commission and the county commission passed the road proposals for that project. So exciting to hear about that too.
Yes, yes.
Commissioner Primo.
The BRA committee met as Amber suggested, and we approved the draw from the township for that project.
Okay. Anyone else? The ZBA did meet, and unfortunately I was still out on day 4 of new baby, so I was not able to attend. But they will be meeting again in 2 days, so I look forward to that. Commissioner McConnell.
Actually, this is a ZBA question and probably for staff. Again, my own edification. There's a case the ZBA is looking at on Arapahoe Trail that involves a variance request to make improvements within a floodplain. And I'm not sure I saw all the materials, but I'm curious, is there a step in the review where that's property is assessed as a wetland as well, or is that a different thing?
The one for Wednesday night for the property, this is property that is along the Red Cedar River and it's in the floodway, so that's moving water during the time of a flood. They had, and this is an after the fact, they had built a fire pit and a stone wall along the river, and they're asking to be able to keep that in place, and that requires a variance for those types of structures in the floodway. The Eagle did consider that a minor, and they didn't have any issues with that. I know our engineers have looked at it. It won't increase flood elevation, these structures. So it's up to the zoning board of appeals if they feel that it should be granted a variance to remain.
So that there isn't a step where the presence of wetland conditions is assessed in that process.
Well, there was, in this case, there wasn't any wetlands. It was all floodplain.
Okay, I'll need to do more homework on the difference. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, any other liaison reports? Seeing none, we'll move on. Agenda item 10, we have no new applications, site plans received or site plans approved, which brings us to our last opportunity for public remarks. For those who have stuck with us in the Zoom meeting, remember you can use the raise hand feature and you'll be promoted to a panelist. For those looking to call in from home, you can use the phone number, which is 517-349-1232. Please remember that to limit your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name and address at the beginning of your remarks. With that, we'll open the floor to public remarks.
We're hearing no telephone calls, sir.
All right. Well, then we will go ahead and close public remarks. And we will move on to our last agenda item, which is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Commissioner Richards. Now, no one wants to leave. Seconded by Commissioner Shrewsbury. All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 8:06 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Congratulations, Scott.
Yep.
Thank you so much. And thank you
Congratulations.
to everyone who sent kind words. I'm sorry I didn't respond, but